No one ever expected kindness to come from the quietest man in the room. And certainly not from the janitor sweeping the marble floors of Hawthorne Industries, a place ruled by fear, deadlines, and a billionaire CEO whose voice alone could silence an entire building. Employees whispered his name like a warning, afraid of being overheard. You didn't cross him. You didn't question him. And you definitely didn't get in his way. But everything changed the week a new janitor arrived. A single father, soft-spoken and tired, with a gentle smile that didn't seem to fit in a building full of tension. No one knew his story. They barely noticed him at first. But within days, the most feared CEO in the city would be forced to face something he'd spent years avoiding. Humanity. Before we start, please subscribe, like, and comment below. Your support helps us share more inspiring stories. Welcome to Kindness Action. The billionaire's name was Mr. Hawthorne. The offices were sleek, cold, and quiet, exactly the way he liked things. People worked late. They skipped holidays. They competed against each other instead of helping each other. That's how Hawthorne believed success was built, through fear, not compassion. One rainy Monday morning, when everyone rushed in dripping wet and irritated, the new janitor held the door open, letting a group of employees inside before himself. Some muttered, "Thanks," others didn't say anything. But he just smiled and nodded politely, as if every little gesture mattered. His name was Daniel. He looked like he had barely slept, but he worked quietly, humming songs, sometimes whispering encouraging words to himself. On his first lunch break, people noticed him sitting alone, eating a sandwich that looked hastily thrown together, peanut butter, maybe, no drink, no extras. He wasn't just quiet. He was humble. And in this building, humility was almost shocking. A week later, the staff heard yelling coming from the top floor. Mr. Hawthorne was furious. Sales numbers were down. A contract had failed. People held their breath as he stormed down the hallway, his footsteps like thunder. He turned the corner, and slammed right into a slippery wet floor. The billionaire stumbled forward, angry and embarrassed, and everyone froze. But Daniel didn't freeze. He rushed forward, steadying him before he fell, apologizing gently, explaining he had just mopped the area. Hawthorne glared at him, ready to explode, but Daniel's eyes weren't filled with fear. They were filled with genuine concern. "Are you okay, sir?" he asked softly. People expected Hawthorne to fire him on the spot, but instead, he paused. Something about the man's tone was disarming. "I'm fine," he muttered, and walked away. Whispers spread rapidly. Who was this janitor who dared speak casually to the billionaire? Later that week, Daniel noticed an accountant crying quietly in an empty conference room. She thought she was alone. But Daniel gently knocked and asked if she needed a glass of water. At first she hesitated, but she ended up talking to him for 15 minutes, something she had never done with anyone in the office. She told him about her father being in the hospital, her fear of losing her job, and how impossible everything felt. Daniel simply listened. He said only one thing: "You don't have to carry everything alone." Sometimes kindness is strength. The next day, that accountant left an anonymous sticky note on the break room fridge: "Thank you to whoever reminded me I'm human." The office slowly changed. People began holding doors for each other. They said, "Good morning," something almost unheard of there. A few even sat with Daniel at lunch, but Hawthorne still kept his distance. Until the day Daniel had to bring his daughter to work. Her school had closed unexpectedly, and he couldn't afford a babysitter. She was small, shy, and carried a worn-out backpack decorated with hand-drawn stars. She sat quietly near Daniel's cart while he swept, reading a children's book. Again and again most employees smiled at her, but Hawthorne was not amused. His face tightened. "This is a workplace, not a daycare," he said coldly. Daniel lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry, sir. I'm doing my best." Hawthorne paused, noticing the backpack, the worn sneakers, the little girl's patient smile. Something shifted. Something he didn't want to feel. "Finish your shift," he finally said, and walked away. But later, he found himself staring through his office glass, watching Daniel gently braid his daughter's hair while she giggled. No screams. No yelling. Just love. That night, Hawthorne sat alone in his massive office, staring at old photos hidden in a drawer, his wife, who passed away years earlier, and his own daughter who had grown up without him really noticing. He remembered being so busy chasing success that he missed birthdays, school plays, and quiet moments. Memories flooded him like a storm, and he finally felt the weight of regret. The next morning, something unbelievable happened. Hawthorne called a company-wide meeting. Employees braced themselves for bad news. Instead, he announced new policies, family support, mental health days, more flexible schedules. People looked at each other in shock. Then Hawthorne did something even more surprising. He looked directly at Daniel and said, "Sometimes the most important lessons come from unexpected teachers." Daniel, stunned, simply nodded. From that day on, things changed. The office became warmer, kinder. People helped each other instead of competing. They celebrated successes together. And Hawthorne, slowly, began smiling. Months later, at the annual company dinner, Hawthorne invited Daniel and his daughter to sit at the front table. He introduced Daniel to everyone as the person who reminded us that kindness is the strongest leadership there is. Daniel felt tears in his eyes, but his daughter squeezed his hand proudly. When the night ended, employees lined up just to thank him. Not because he was powerful, but because he was kind. And in a place once ruled by fear, one gentle man, one single dad just trying his